Hey guys, welcome back to Community Starcraft 2. I'm your host, Sidewinder. I'm here with another game, and I'm going to call this game a pro replay, even though I don't believe either of these players are technically considered pros. This is going to be a Protoss versus Terran. The red Terran player's name is Sanya, who I just had to go on to Google Translate to translate that, and that's what it translates out to. So they're spawning down here in the bottom left of Zelnaga Caverns. He's going to be fighting the blue Protoss, who is NEXSickness, who is one of those players in Korea that is very, very good, but for whatever reason, he just hasn't shown up on the GSL yet. So we'll definitely see how this game unfolds. And I will call this a pro replay because people of this high of level in Korea are basically pros. I mean, if you can call US players pros, you can call these super high level Korean players pros as well, just because they're so good. But nevertheless, we're going to jump into this game here. While this is kind of building up, I will just go ahead and officially announce that my site is now coming up very slowly. It'll be a little bit of a process, but it's going to be communitysc2.com. If you go over there right now, that'll just be a little landing page that doesn't actually do anything right now. But nevertheless, it will host all sorts of replays and videos and forums and all kinds of cool stuff. Basically just kind of a home base for Starcraft 2 so that you guys can go there, get all the information you ever need. Instead of having to bounce around between sites to either get tutorials or whatever, I kind of want to make this a fully encompassing StarCraft site. So you'll see that coming up in the near future. There is a probe in here for NEXSickness being annoying, harassing this SCV, and you can see him. He will go in there and poke at the SCV a little bit and then start to regenerate his shields and while he's running away, and then turn right back around and fight that SCV again just to try to get a cheap kill off if he can. Usually that won't work against these type of caliber of players, but nevertheless, this is actually a strange timing so far from NEXSickness. I'm not sure what he's going to develop into, but he's taking both of his gases at the same time, and his gateway was actually a little late. I think he actually started his gateway on 15. So he's definitely going for a very greedy economic build right now. Actually missing just a little bit of time on his cybernetics core, so I'm not sure if this is something that he frequently runs or if it's just something he's trying out. But with this much gas this early, you got to expect some super heavy tech play, whatever that might be, whether it's Dark Templar, whether it's a lot of Stargate units, whether it's robotics units, or, you know, you never really know what direction he's going to go with that, but you definitely don't harvest this kind of gas and just sit on it. He's also not really producing units, which is also very strange. He's probably just waiting for Cybernetics Core to finish up, and whoa! Up comes a fast Ghost Academy from Sanya. I actually saw something like this in the GSL recently. It was in the GSL Team League, which is something you don't see that often. It was Yoda who went for that. I am Yoda, who went for a barracks into Ghost Academy. And he turned that into Cloak Ghosts into nukes. He did it against two different players, and it actually worked out really well in one game and not very well in another. So we'll see if that's where he wants to go. But in the meantime, he's getting a Reaper out, probably just to scout. And I would imagine this scout is going to determine if he's going to go for that ghost play right away. Checking a look at his resources, he does not have the kind of gas to start any of these upgrades on the ghosts quite yet. He actually just now starts it, so he does start cloaking, and there is also a ghost on the way. So this looks a lot like that Yoda build that we saw in the GSL recently. And these cool builds like this really spread around Korea fast, so if they see one of the GSL players pull it out, they'll go ahead and start it as well. Obviously, I don't see very much stuff from the Korean ladder, so I don't know if I should be giving a ton of credit to Yoda for coming up to this or not. But the Reaper and the Stalker are having a little bit of a scuffle here in the middle. Obviously, the Reaper's going to lose that, and if NEXSickness can deny this Reaper scouting information, it'll be great, but he decides to turn around and go and head towards the Terran base to see if he's expanded and possibly poke up the ramp just a little bit to see what's going on. The Ghost is on the field. There's now a Marauder coming out, and this Ghost is kind of wandering around, and if the Stalker spots this is going to be huge. I'm not sure if that Stalker actually saw it. He might have, so I don't know. I wish we could have seen that from NEXSickness's vision, but nevertheless, Stalker needs to get out of there before this Marauder hunts him down, but the Marauder's shells are not done yet, so that Stalker will definitely get away. This Ghost is poking around over here on this right side of the map, usually a path that nobody ever walks along unless they're really trying to hide something very heavily. There's a bunch of sentries coming out now for the Protoss player. Make that 4 sentries and that one Stalker the only units he has on the map. He's still banking quite a bit of gas, so I expect a couple more sentries coming out here in just a second. So it's very sentry-heavy expand. It's a Stalker and a probe making its way out. The tech he has chosen is this robotics facility, as you can see it coming up behind the mineral line right now. Could be just for scouting for the most part, but here comes the Cloak Ghost. This robotics really needs to finish so he can get an observer out, and this is exactly what Yoda did in his games where he pulled out the Ghost. He just went straight for the mineral line and that cloak and got a ton of probe kills before the enemy could respawn. And look at this Ghost. He does have his actions all queued up. He does kill workers in 2 shots, so he's going to get a lot of stuff done before this observer finally pops out. You can see the train time on the observer is 40 seconds, plus whatever might be coming along. You can see him, he knows where this Ghost is, and he's actually force fielding it away from his workers as much as possible. And then he's going to hold position on some units to trap the Ghost in there. So this is some interesting play to try and counter this, but the observer is going to be out any second, and these sentries will roast up that Ghost. Down he goes, he's dead. Behind all this, the Terran player has actually started a command center, which you can see right here. He does salvage that bunker. He's got 4 barracks operational and a factory now coming up. So he's going to be looking quite good in terms of production. Nexus is now done. It's kind of a tongue twister, but his Nexus is now done. He's now getting a second observer out. Probably just going to hang these observers around his mineral line for the time being. As you can see, the rally is just right next to where the robotics is, set on his base. The other observer is going to be heading into the Terran main to see exactly what's happening. There is another Ghost on the field, and one interesting thing you can do with the Ghost is actually EMP the observers, which will remove its cloaking. So you can shoot those observers out of the sky, which will deny a lot of scouting information, but NEXSickness is actually pulling out a Templar archives in response to what he's seen so far from the Terran player. It's a really fast Templar archives, and if you start Storm right away, that Storm will be ready in about 11 minutes, so that's super fast Storm. 2 Templars are now in the field, and I imagine with those quick Templars he's going to meld them into an Archon fairly soon, unless he really wants to build up energy for that long, which I doubt. The Templars could also be used for feedbacking those Ghosts, but I'm not sure that that's really that wise of an investment right now. But nevertheless, these Templar are moving out, so some really strange behavior from both of these players so far. He does have Storm queued up, a couple more gateways. The Terran player is now getting his starport operational and getting the reactor down for the starport. Probably going to be putting out medevacs to support this bio army. We can see the Templar is still moving up here. It looks like he wants to feedback this Ghost. He does have it queued up, as we can see it just sitting there. And he does hit the Ghost, but it actually doesn't kill it, so that was kind of a waste of a Templar. There's still 5 hit points left on that Ghost. Small little bioforce for Sanya moving out here, and the Stalker actually walks right into the Terran main and sees everything that's going on. If that Stalker turned around and killed this Ghost, that would be a huge pickoff, especially while the army is away, and the army does now fall back. So it looks like he just wanted to push up to take control of these watchtowers, but yeah, this has such an awkward tempo behind it. Forge is now coming down here for the Protoss player to start getting those upgrades, and he is also getting Zealot legs, so it looks like he wants to go into this Templar Zealot composition, which is a very powerful composition against this Terran army. It usually just comes down to positioning and upgrade wars to see who can actually win that. Not to mention the caster versus caster battles in the higher level games, which you'll see casters trying to fight each other between EMPs and feedbacks. And frankly, if the Protoss player gets any of those storms off and even gets feedbacks to boot, they're really hard to fight. So it's kind of a bad place for a Terran player to get into if they can't use their ghosts effectively enough. Here comes a small push out from both of these players, kind of just meeting in the middle of the map. Both of them look like they want to knock down their rocks so they can take their gold pretty quickly. Again, they're posturing to take their gold at about 12 minutes, so it's a pretty fast macro game. The Protoss player, though, is really not confident in engaging that army, but the Templars are now moving up. And there's no ghosts in this army, so they need to be really careful since Storm is done. He may just rip through this army. Here come the force fields. Oh, amazing Storm right on top of these units. You can see him force fielding right into a little donut here. A couple of more Storms go down on this, and look how weakened this Terran army is right now. Another Storm goes down. All these Marauders are in the deep red. One hit from a sentry will actually kill these, but the Terran player is still pushing forward here, being quite aggressive. A bunch more Templars are out. He does have a detection on here, so he's going to go ahead and feedback a whole bunch of ghosts. And there is still a couple of Storms left on these Templars. We can see the Archon's now morphing. He's falling back, buying some time. Storm should be laid down here any second. There it goes, right on top of the bio, but they're actually focusing down these Templar. It's a really close battle, but the Protoss player is really going to start to chew through this. And these medevacs are in serious danger of being killed, but he does not have Stalkers to run these down. Bad rally on this Marine, and fortunately he gets out of there. He just scoots right on by as the Protoss player is more focused on killing his rocks. But that was some awesome force fielding and awesome Storms going along with that force fielding. And this is why in Korea, if you play over there, Just getting into the Diamond Leagues in Korea is insane because they're so good. They're so good with their unit control, so good with their micro, and of course so good with their macro so that they can keep their armies coming out. But yeah, that was an awesome play from the Protoss player. Kind of a bad play from the Terran player, quite honestly, considering he did not bother to bring his Ghosts along for that engagement. Had he EMP'd those two Templars, which were kind of sitting together, that outcome would have been a lot differently. In fact, the Terran player could have just won that game right there because the Protoss army was so skimpy. But nevertheless, it happened the way it happened, and it could not have happened any other way, in the words of Morpheus. Here comes the Gold Nexus coming up for the Terran, or rather for the Protoss player here at the Gold. And looking around the Terran base, he's not very eager to start a third here. It looks like he's really worried about getting getting this tech lab killed. I think he actually built his barracks in a way so that his Ghost could actually not escape when he was trying to get out of there, so that he'd rather just kill the tech lab and remake it, re-land it. Anyway, an interesting composition here from the Protoss player. He does not have a ton of punching power in this army, but if he lands good storms, which I feel like he's relying on just a little bit too much, he'll be able to win these kinds of fights. The Ghosts are pressing up just a little bit, and he actually saw him there for a second, ready to pull off that feedback. He is leading with an Observer, and this is perfect work with the army. He's leading with the Observer, and if he lands a storm here, this would be big feedback on the medevac. Another storm should be coming in here, and he kills a whole bunch of Marines and puts the Marauders all in the deep red. Another storm goes down, and you can see how devastating it is if you let the Protoss player get storms off. And all the while, the Ghosts are just standing around. Another storm should come, all big feedbacks on top of the medevacs, making these bio units rather useless. Good force fields, but now that he's killed what's in front of the force fields, he needs to get out of there. Snipes going off to try to get this Templar, but he escapes out of there with 6 health. Army is still pressing forward just a little bit, and it should actually intercept a small band of units, but there are huge reinforcements coming out here. Storms should be laid down all over this army. More storms on top of the bio. The Ghosts are not doing anything in this fight. They really need to get up in front and be feedbacking or sniping these Templars, or not feedbacking, but EMPing. And the Terran army is just getting ripped to shreds, but he's actually got some pretty good durability here, as NEXSickness is actually losing a ton of units to this push from the Terran player. More snipes are going off here. Good snipes to take out a bunch of these Zealots. And here come the Ghosts actually sniping the Templars, so really good usage of that snipe is kind of keeping him in this game at this point. More Zealots do press up here. He's trying to focus down the Ghosts with these so that he can actually get some work done with his Templar. Templar try to lay down some storms, but the Ghosts are all in the deep red. Stalkers should come up here and clean this up, but the Protoss player needs to be very careful here. He's really falling behind in supply. He's really taking for granted his lack of punching power in his army. I feel like he should have been a lot more Zealot heavy during those engagements. And those force fields that he put down actually right here actually kind of worked against him. So tough game here to try and hold on to from the Protoss player. But again, if he gets a couple of nice storms, if these Ghosts aren't aggressive enough in killing those Templar, he will be in great shape. This Protoss, or rather this Terran player, really needs to be careful though, because all of his medevacs are at no energy. If he tries to push in here with these units, it's just going to be basically like the medevacs aren't even there. So this army does not have a lot of staying power. Right as I say that, a couple of medevacs do join up here that have a decent amount of energy, spawning energy nonetheless, and a couple more actually do rally. So this Terran push is getting more and more scary, but the Protoss player is able to put out a decent enough army, considering the Terran player is still on these 2 bases. And again, a little more posturing here, a little more seeing what's going on. You don't want to get your observers scanned in this situation here, because this is your only way to see when the Terran force is coming. And you need to be able to see them coming so you can land the stuff with your Templars that you need to land. A couple of Templars are hanging out separated from the army. Zealots do press up here, and he's trying to bait out some EMPs on these Zealots, but I don't think he's going to actually fall for that. A couple of EMPs here would be huge, and he does land them all over the Protoss army, but now the Ghosts are out of the mix, so if the Terran player continues to engage here, he will really get ripped up by these storms, and that gives the Protoss player a chance to fall back here and regenerate all of his shields.